Well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. And then I am going to let a few more people in. And we'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. I am going to be dropping the PDFs of the recipes into the chat box for you. So if you don't have those and you need it right now, I'll be dropping them there. They also were in the email this morning, and you'll get them again when we send out the video. My goal is to get that video sent to you by Friday, because after Friday, we're on holiday break and I'm taking a break. So, that is all I want to say about our housekeeping. Real quick before we get started, is anybody cooking along with us tonight? Is anybody cooking? Yay. Caitlin's cooking. Anybody else? All right, that's all right. Oh, the Walters are cooking along. Awesome. So you guys, particularly, if you're doing something and you need us to stop, slow down, ask a clarifying question, by all means, feel free to chime in and we will get that question asked. If you want to comment in the chat, we can do that too. Okay, I am going to turn it over to Chef Katie first. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight her so we can get the best view possible during our class. And Chef Katie, take it away.
Hi, all right, welcome back to our second half of Edible Gifts. My favorite way to give presents. I have officially mailed off all of my boxes of edible gifts, so hopefully the post office can get them delivered before Christmas Day. We shall see. I did on my camera here, I do have the bacon, the 2 pieces of bacon for the onion bacon jam. That's what we're gonna start with first, is the onion bacon jam. And I just started cooking it a little bit so that we wouldn't necessarily just be like hanging out waiting for bacon to cook. But hopefully you can see like the size of the pieces that I cut. They're not like perfect squares, or I just, chopped down the bacon. I also cut some of my onions as well. They were quite fragrant, so I thought it was probably best that I wasn't like crying on camera, but I am going to show you what some of my pieces look like here. This is what we say when we say julienne of an onion. So a julienne translates to a matchstick, which when you're cutting a carrot or a sweet potato makes a lot more sense. But when you are cutting an onion, it's not as squared off as an actual matchstick. So I'm also going to show you guys now how to cut these onions with the 2 remaining onions that I have. So we're going to turn to my cutting board cam here. I love teaching people how to cut onions. Definitely one of my favorite things to do. There are 2 parts of the onion. There is the stem side, which is up here at the top, and then there is the root side. That's the one that has the little hairy bits. When you're dicing an onion, it's the root end that you would want to keep intact. But when you're doing a julienne, we're actually going to cut both the top and the bottom off. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half, as much in the center of the onion as I can, and peel off these outside pieces. And I can see it's a little ugly at the end there, so I'm going to get rid of that bit. So when cutting the julienne, what you're looking for is not this half moon shape. We're going to follow the actual lines of the onion. And we're going to be going in a straight up and down. If I've ever taught any of you to dice an onion, I always recommend following the arc of the onion, but for the julienne, we're just going to go straight up and down. And my onion has some like gross pieces here. I mean, it's not the end of the world, so I'm just going to cut them out. So that's all I'm doing there. So now we're gonna slice these. And again, I'm gonna use my knuckles are gonna help me as using this as a guide so that I can do the same width. And then for this last little piece, I let it flip over and do it that way. I'm gonna check my bacon, which is looking really good. So I'm actually going to turn the heat off. This is one trick that I have learned because I notoriously burn the bacon, is that when I look at it and I think, oh, it just needs like one more minute, that residual heat from the pan is usually enough to bring it to like right where I need it. This is like the end of the season for these onions. All right, so I'm gonna julienne this last one, and then I'm gonna pull my bacon. I have a bowl right next to my saute or my stock. No, wait, what's the word I'm looking for here? Saucepan. And I am going to use a slotted spoon to get the bacon out because I do want the fat. So that is all my onions. So yeah, so we're just looking for a nice golden brown for our bacon. Can you see it? Oh, there it is. Yeah. Is that, and then we've got this leftover grease in the pan and these little bits, and these little bits are gonna help give a lot of flavor. You notice that the recipe is called onion bacon jam, not bacon onion jam, because we are gonna really get the flavor of that bacon with just those two pieces by utilizing the fat to cook it in and the fond that's at the bottom of the pot. So for this beginning part, I'm gonna stir. And as I'm stirring, hopefully you guys can see this, I'm kind of dragging. I love this type of spoon that has this flat edge, but I'm kind of dragging it on the bottom of my pan because I want to make sure that I'm getting all of these brown bits, all this bacon flavor. I don't want it to continue sticking to the bottom of my pan, in which case it's gonna kind of burn, and you'll get that, that scorched kind of. Can you see, Heather, how like the bottom of my pan now doesn't really have much of that brown?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Fancy, you're saying you can't see the cooking pan? Okay.
Oh, maybe it's on page 2, Heather. Is that possible?
Well, I have it. I thought I had them double spotlighted, but let me do this.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, I fixed it.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I'm just kind of tossing my onions. And this is why it's important to use a deeper saucepan so that you really have enough space to coat your onions in that bacon fat and keep it moving around.
Katie, we have a question.
Yeah.
Ellen would like to know if there is any good vegetarian substitute for the bacon to still get a nice meaty flavor. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I would maybe try to go, okay, so you could definitely utilize liquid smoke. I think that could really help get that kind of umami meaty. I think when we think of that smokiness, we just automatically connect it with meat. But I would also say something like miso would give like a really nice umami. I don't really mess with meat substitutions very much. We're a pretty meat-eating family.
Suggested that tempeh bacon would be nice, and I do think that could be an option for you if you're into that sort of thing. There are a lot of those products available on the market. I would always just say be careful. Sometimes they're still, I mean, not that bacon isn't processed, because it is, but like we said, we're only using 2 slices here for this whole recipe. So just be mindful, all that stuff. Like everything else, you eat it in moderation.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of the great thing about us utilizing the fat and the fond for that bacon, is that we're really kind of getting that bacon flavor as much in the onions without actually having to add a ton of bacon to it. All right, so I've put my lid on. This is going to allow the onions to steam a little bit and help them cook through all the way without us having to constantly be monitoring the sauce pot. So that when we do take the lid off and the liquid starts to evaporate and the onions start to caramelize, they'll already be cooked. So I'm going to show you guys just one more step of this recipe, and then we're going to move on to the Earl Grey cookies. So I've got my sprig of thyme here. I just want to show you guys this trick of gently dragging your fingers down, and you end up with all of the herbs, I'm sorry, all the thyme leaves just kind of come right off the stem.
Can you show that one more time? Because I didn't have you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. Here, let me do it with a good one that's full. So I don't do it all the way at the top because you'll see it's kind of like a little limper, but the stem on the thyme here is very stiff. And so I just pinch with my fingers and drag. And then if I really need to, I can like take the time to pick off these tops. But I feel like, at least in my house, when we buy thyme, we buy like such an obnoxious amount of it that I don't waste my time trying to pick off every single thyme leaf. I also, as I'm sure a lot of you have heard me talk about in the past, always have my treasure bag in my freezer. And so I would be more than happy to put this half drug stem of thyme in my stock and just save it that way. You can also go the opposite way and head towards the front. But again, you just have to remember to get that one off. And then I'm just going to give this a quick little chop because the leaves of thyme are pretty small as it is. But we're just looking to make sure that it really gets all the way through our recipe. And I'm just going to add it here with my brown sugar. So I do, we talk a lot about mise en place with our cooking. So I definitely have my brown sugar already measured out. I have my apple cider vinegar and my apple cider already measured out for that recipe. And then let me just wipe off my board here. And then we're gonna make the cookies. All right, so. All right, so for this one, I do use my my KitchenAid just because it is nice to not have to beat it by hand. I definitely have my KitchenAid like on my counter so that it's accessible for recipes like this. I like not having to like dig it out of a cabinet. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put my softened butter into the bowl and my powdered sugar. And then I did want to show you guys how I'm gonna do this. So I do just have this regular Earl Grey. It's actually decaffeinated, which I think was a desperate moment because they only had decaffeinated. But I have to say, when making cookies like this, especially if you think your children are going to eat them, it's kind of nice to have the decaffeinated teas. So I did make this the other day. So I snipped my tea bags off, and I know that each of these bags is almost a tablespoon. So I'm just going to go ahead and, or as a half of a tablespoon, I should say. So I'm going to put those in. So I made half of the recipe yesterday. I'm just showing you guys a half version, which I think is nice to know that it's really easy to do this in a half capacity. And then I have this fine sea salt. We try not to give you guys so many different ingredients and different types of like salt and thing, but I will say that if you like sprinkling salt on top of your cookies, fine salt is definitely the way to go. Fine sea salt, I should say. All right, so in it goes. And I'm just going to let this mix. And if you guys can see, it's like, you know, a little crumbly, and then it really just starts to come together. The powdered sugar and the tea leaves. I do recommend, if you have the time to make this a day ahead, I do think that the flavor of the Earl Grey really comes out more in the cookies. So I just scraped down my bowl. I'm gonna let it spin one more time, and then I'm gonna add my flour. And then I'll show you guys the trick about how to make it into a log.
Katie, we do have a question about the tea. And I
Okay.
think we talked about this the other day, but you can tell everybody what if Elaine wants to know if it would be possible to use another type of tea, and if maybe you have some thoughts on another type of tea that would be good.
Yeah, so I have to be very honest. I have never done another type of tea, but I do think that another type of tea would be good. And I think it just depends on where you're like headed with it. So I think when we had this conversation, because we like clearly predicted that this question was going to come, I do believe we talked about like a mint tea or like an English breakfast tea, I think would be really nice. And then if you are into like strong tea flavors, something like a dejarling tea might be really nice.
Chai. I love chai
Oh,
spice, so I thought that might be cool to try.
yeah.
Oh, Romy says lavender with an orange spice tea. Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I think if it's a flavor combination that you really like, then yes, like I would not, the cookie's gonna bake the same, the measurements would really be the same for the tea leaves. So I think you would be good to go. I did take the lid off of my onions, and I'm gonna go ahead and let them start browning. So now you can really see all of that definitely came up. That little bit of like steaming action really helped get the bits of bacon off of the bottom of the saucepan.
And that jam does take a little while, but I do think it's mostly hands off, which is why we started with it, so that it has time to do its thing.
Yes, yes. And really like the cookies too, I'm glad I made a dough yesterday so that you guys, we can kind of, with the magic of television, show you how to do this. So again, it's kind of crumbly, and then it's really just gonna come together to form like a nice soft dough. You don't really need to like over mix it too much. So once that you see your flour incorporate completely, I think you can ditch the KitchenAid. You could definitely do this with a hand mixer too if you don't have a stand mixer at home. All right, so now time to roll. This is one of my favorite things to do with a lot of cookies. I sleep better knowing that I have cookie dough in my freezer. So most of the time when I make a batch of cookies, I freeze at least half of the dough. And I have yet to find a cookie that, was inedible after freezing it. And then doing the same method where you just slice the rings or the circles of the dough off. All right, so I'm just pulling the dough together here into one kind of lump. In the recipe, because it's a double batch compared to what I'm doing, or a complete batch, I should say, I do recommend that you split the dough in half. And this is only for simplicity. It can get really hard to manage when you have like a very, very long piece of dough. So I just take it easy on myself and put less in.
Then you could also have one to give and one to keep.
Yes, that's true too.
If you wanted to.
All right, so here is my piece of saran wrap. I'm just gonna stretch out. And I'm gonna try to, when I put my dough on there, I want it to already kind of look like a log. So I'm not gonna just pile it all right in the middle of my saran wrap. I'm gonna kind of thoughtfully put it in a line like this. Okay, so now we have this kind of lumpy, misshapen log. But I'm gonna use the saran wrap to wrap around it. And now it's kind of just like rolling up a burrito, right? So you're just gonna wrap the saran wrap around the dough and kind of pull back a little bit. I also at this point kind of utilize the sides to smush them in some and try to get this dough to become a little more harmonious. But now I'm going to finish wrapping it up. And I'm kind of, dragging my hands across it to just make it so that it looks, somewhat even. And rolling up all the way. And then on the ends here, we just do a really firm twist. And then I just kind of lay that on top there. Same with this side. I'm like pushing a little bit because your ends always get a little bit skinnier in that forming. So again, I'm twisting, twisting, twisting. And then my last trick here, if anybody's ever made like baguettes or just played with your child's Play-Doh, this rolling motion, but notice like my fingers start like this, and then I spread them out a little bit more. And that gets you this nice tube shape. Now, I will say when you cool it in the refrigerator, you're going to get one kind of flat side from it laying on the, on the shelf in your refrigerator.
That was the most beautiful cookie log I think I may have ever seen. I felt like it looked like perfection. There's another one.
Yeah. I'm well practiced with the, like I said, of like freezing. I have like 4 frozen cookie dough logs. Show. You're gonna see all my frozen logs.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, well I guess it's really just this one. So I do have another one ready to go next time. All right, so this one chilled in my refrigerator last night. In the recipe, it says that you can put it in the freezer until firm. That's if you're planning on baking it immediately. If you can give it a day, I think you're going to be really happy because it will have grown. The tea will have grown in flavor. Let me just rinse my knife off here to show you guys some slices, and we'll get them in the oven. And then it will be Amber's turn. Oh, actually not exactly yet. I still need to add my stuff to my onions. That was the alarm to take away my child's water bottle so that he does not wet the bed. I probably now need to text his dad to remind him. Okay, back to my camera. Okay, so here's our log. Now this first one is just kind of, it's the one you get to eat when the rest come out and that you don't give it away because it has this kind of weird misshapenness to it. But you'll see it will bake just fine. And so now you just try to cut even thickness. These cookies do not spread very much, so you really can fit usually about 15. I can do 15 on a pan. So we've got all of our and you'll see they look a little bit, they're not like perfect circles, but I'm not that type of chef. Like I don't really care. So hopefully you're not so neurotic. Some tips about if you do want it to be like a perfect circle, you can rotate it in your refrigerator or freezer as it chills so that it doesn't get that very distinct one side. All right, so those are in the oven for 10 minutes. And if you want to come back to the onions, Pam?
Yes, let me go back over to that pan. Also, really quickly, Sandra wants to know if you can do that cookie dough with like roll it out and do cookie cutters.
Yeah, I never have. It's gonna be kind of sticky on you. Like I just think there's a reason it gets rolled in a log is because it's kind of a pain to
Yeah.
cut it out
I
with
think shortbread in general is one that does tend to do better as a slice and bake.
yeah.
Whereas the cookies we did last time, the cowgirl cookies, you had a lot more flexibility. You could do those either way. So
Right, because the thing too with these type of shortbread cookies is like they don't really want to continue getting mixed. So like if you cut out the shapes and then you kind of push the dough back together to then roll out again, it's going to start changing texturally and you're not going to get this like I would call it a delicate crumb. It's going to be a little bit more like a thick.
yeah, it's
snack.
almost like it's going to be tougher.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
All right, so here goes in my vinegar, my sugar, and those thyme leaves. The bacon, I think, goes in now too, right?
Yeah, I think it all goes back in.
Okay, and the bacon back in.
Now we jam it up. Jam it up.
All right, so we're just gonna leave this on the stove and we're gonna move it on to our friend Amber and she's gonna do her party mix and some flavored popcorn, which is my favorite snack.
Yeah, I'm really excited for these ones because as everyone knows, I'm a lazy chef. So I really try to make sure that everything that I'm doing is going to be super quick and easy and as simplified as possible. So hopefully you can relate maybe a little, or hopefully this can save you a little time. So I'm going to start first with that sweet and spicy party mix. The first step does talk about gathering all of the different spices and herbs. And I just want to remind everyone the way our recipes are always written is the very first ingredients are always the ones that we're going to be using first in our steps. So I knew from the get-go which ones were going to be in this recipe. However, just like Chef Katie was talking about, is thyme is a little special. So for this recipe, it talks about chopping the thyme. But for me, I prefer to do one of those more consistent pulls down, like she was talking about, where I can just pull all the leaves off and let them fall. And then that way I have a decent amount that stays on my on the actual stems, and that can go straight into my stock. So I feel really good when I'm able to just gently pull some of these leaves off. And then I'm not so worried about making sure I get all of them. This is a really great herb that can stay in the fridge forever. So I love to have it on hand, but my rosemary is still going pretty strong in the garden. So that's something we could do. You're really just looking for those woodier herbs. So that way we're able to get the flavor that lasts throughout the baking. And then continues on as we're cooking. So I already combined, hopefully I can show you guys. Last time I know I really just made this beautiful thing and then turned it, and it was a disappointment for everybody involved. So hopefully you can see. I already did my brown sugar, my salt, cinnamon, cayenne. So I'll just put my thyme in there. And then the recipe just wants us to put that to the side. I want to make sure that I'm always having that done ahead of time. And then next off is to do the nuts. Now you can do any type of nuts or seeds. This recipe works really well. I've already been munching on some of my nuts while I was waiting for Katie, as nuts are a great snack. And they have a lot of fiber and are omegas, so they're very, very good snacking. So hopefully this communicates enough volume. But I'm putting that disclaimer out. And then all of our nuts are just going to go in the oven on the parchment lined paper for about 10 minutes. We always just want to make sure they get brown. We always say about nuts, if you can smell them, that means they're already overdone. So we're just trying to make sure we take them out before they burn. So I'm going to stick those in the oven. And then I can move on to our next recipe while we wait on those. Setting a timer. And I know timers are all relative for this type of thing. I'm just going to wait until those brown. And then I'll be able to add in those nuts to my next ingredient. So in the meantime, the next recipe I'll be working on is our popcorn spice mix. So what we're trying to advertise, just like we did last time, you can have lots of different mix options. This recipe, I gave you 3 different varieties. I personally like to gift multiple different spice blends in the same, so that way I can stack them all together and people can pick what type of snacker they are, because we have sweet snackers, we have savory snackers, we have salty snackers. And so if perhaps you want to gift it to your mommy and you know she only likes sweet snacks, you can choose to go with that route. Um, but for mine, I'm trying to keep it pretty versatile. And so I'm going to have all 3, but the one I'll show you is the sweet seasoning, which is the one I'll go with. I'm sorry it wasn't a more clever name. Usually Heather names all of our woody things. Sweet seasoning is the best I got. So sorry in advance. But again, I have all, I'm gonna make a mess, I just know it. But I have all my different spices here. So I have my brown sugar, the cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger. Now notice I did not put the salt in this. Our salt is measured per recipe of popcorn. It's not measured per seasoning blend. All of the seasonings that we gift at the Goldering Center, or we make in general, we never put salt in them because we always do salt-free seasoning, so that way people can choose their own amount of salt in the recipe. So for these spices, I'm gonna just go ahead. I did double the recipe so that way I'd be able to show you. And I'll just mix that together. And then preemptively, I already know that once I mix all this together, I'm going to gift it in my little container. So I'll pull some to the side. And then I know that I'm going to be using a decent amount of this blend to show you the popcorn. Now I know I'm trying to tell you to gift the popcorn, but I want to show you the special technique that this recipe has. It's very unusual. I did not, I'm going to admit it, I did not believe Heather that it was necessary. And after 8 recipe attempts of my version, I listened to her. And it turns out she was right. And so I'm going to just go ahead and gift that knowledge to y'all so that way you don't have to make 8 attempts in the wrong direction, just the same.
I don't think 8, Amber. You're exaggerating.
I mean, I was definitely at least 6.
So what you're showing people is that you can gift.
I'm gonna pull.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, we're good. We had a little glitch. All right, we're back. It's all good.
So the way I'll do it is when I gift it, I can pour my popcorn. Now I use yellow popcorn. We also have this very colorful version, and I can just fill up my jar, however much I want, with some popcorn. I'll go a little more.
Oh, that's cute.
And then I can put my container of spices right on top, and then I will close it up, and it will stay completely separate.
Oh my gosh, Amber, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen.
I know. I prefer all in one, no effort. Now, if I'm trying to be generous to my friends and fam, I can put a brown paper bag with it, which I will in the gift basket that I'm making to show y'all today. But in the meantime, for this special popcorn technique, we're gonna do popcorn. I already pre-made my popcorn in my bag, but we're gonna take our spice blend and we're gonna make it into with the oil and the salt and almost into a paste. So for our recipe, it needs 1 tablespoon of salt-free seasoning. Doesn't matter which kind. Obviously, I'm gonna go with the one that I just made because it's delicious, and that's what I've been thinking about all day. And then from there, I can put my 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, which I always keep a nice little measuring wide mouth container of salt so I can measure it pretty easily. And then our oil, which is 1 tablespoon as well. Now this is olive oil. You can do an olive oil blend if you like. You can do EVOO. It's however it works best for you, whatever you have on hand. And then once I have it all in my container, this is where the magic happens, which is very surprising for me. So you'll notice, which I'll give you a close up, but as I'm mixing it, it's going to create this paste, very similar to a curry paste, a raw roux, but it's just that way spices are fat soluble, so they're going to be able to get mixed into the oil. Not only is this going to help it stick on the popcorn, but it's also going to make sure that our spices aren't so gritty.
Yeah, I always find with cinnamon in particular, it really needs some fat with it to.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's ever eaten dry cinnamon, but it's not good.
So when I was making this recipe testing, it was a straight up cinnamon challenge up in here.
Yeah.
It was a lot of choking. So now I know what you're thinking. Popcorn directly into a liquid, that means it's going to get really wet. It doesn't. So I'm just going to gently coat it. And now you can give it a mix. My bowl's not 100% the right size, but I'm just trying to get these. Ooh. Anything that jumps out is just like a snack that you get in the meantime. And then that way I can just coat everything with the, oh my goodness, it's just going
Yeah,
everywhere.
a big bowl is really, you need a really big bowl for this. That's you practice it at the kitchen where we have those ginormous bowls. We should have borrowed one for this tonight.
Yeah, I definitely should have scaled this. That's okay. That's half the fun. Good thing my counter's clean. I'm just gonna roll up my sleeves.
I like this. I like this. Yeah.
The hand action. There we go. This is working. And
Yeah.
that way I'm able to coat our popcorn and you get it in every bite, and then the oil's gonna keep it stuck. And then we're also not putting very much salt. It's 1/4 of a teaspoon for all the servings. It's 4 cups worth in this batch. And so that leaves us with very minimal amount of salt for everyone. So if, in general, I know a lot of people question putting salt in a sweet spice blend, but it really does counteract. And you'll see that with our caramel later, where it's very nice to have a little bit of salt action while having just to cut the sweet. And then that's our, I think it's working.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of see it. I will say, take our word for it. It really does help that oil, like pasty mixture, does stick to the popcorn. And we tried it with all of the different spice blends that we gave you in the recipe, the savory and the sweet. And it really was very successful. You don't end up with a lot of spice at the bottom of your bowl. You get your spices and your little bit of salt there on your popcorn, which is what you want. Amber, do you want to talk briefly about ways they can make popcorn quickly and easily in the microwave?
Yeah, so all of the GCCM recipes are usually made with a brown paper bag. You can additionally, which is just dry pop, no oil, nothing, just in the brown bag.
And you just crimp it over. Just crimp it over, stick it in the microwave.
Just rolled over. And once it stops popping, you're done. I like that version a lot because it's a controlled environment. Now, I made a mistake last week of not putting brown paper bags in our class bags, and we realized that you could actually make it with in a bowl. Then you put a plate over the top, and then you just put that in the microwave, and that works just the same. Additionally, you can do it on the stove top, but on the stove it doesn't necessarily work too well without any oil. Used from cooking into the pan. Now I know what you're thinking. Could you put the spice then at that time? No. Turns out it burns. So you just have to wait on that one. So it just means a little bit more oil. Which, take my word for it. I tried and errored. Don't do that. Because then your house is smells like smoke. Cool. So my nuts are ready for the next step. So I'll pull those out. I actually got my butter. So for the next part of the party mix, we are going to melt the butter. And because I have about 30 seconds left on the nuts, I'm just gonna melt my butter first. And then the reason we're doing this is because it's gonna go back in the oven with all the rest of the ingredients. So if you start with pre-toasted or you have toasted nuts, you don't need to do this first step. You will want to warm them a little bit, so that way the butter incorporates well.
We do like a toasted nut at Gold Ring, that is for sure. Absolutely. I think too, Amber, what do you think about this? Do you think we could have done the initial toasting on the stove if we wanted to? If we have a big enough pan, maybe?
Absolutely, but like I said, I'm a lazy chef, so I wouldn't want to have to do more dishes than I have to.
Yeah.
a lot easier for me to just put them in for about 10 minutes.
I just get nervous. I'm bad at nuts in the oven. Mine always end up burning. Because I don't know, maybe my nose isn't up to snuff.
That's very witty. So then we'll combine our nuts, which I love parchment because then I can just pick it up while it's hot. You don't need chef hands in order to do that. So we'll just add our nuts, and then we will add in our butter. And then the butter's going to help to incorporate it so that way. And I just partially warmed it a little bit because we do want it to fully melt over the nuts. And this is going to help us get everything to stick to them. And then from there, I can stir in my pretzels. Now, I know this recipe says to do small pretzels, as most of the people that have been watching this throughout the weeks and months, I'm gluten-free, so these are the only options. So please, I don't think sticks are the best option, but they're what I have to work with. And then we'll add in our Chex. Now you can do a flavored Chex if you want to get fancy. I just went with a plain Chex. We're just mixing so that way that butter stays incorporated. And then it says to add in.
Did you lose your?
Yeah, I lost my. I forgot to mix in my. Oh, you guys can't see what I'm mixing. You should have told me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, it looks so good. Yum.
I forgot to mix my brown sugar in with my spices, so I'm doing that now.
All right, so we have buttery nuts mixed with our little cereal, mixed with our popcorn. Now we're going in with the sugary spice mix. Yes?
Absolutely, yes. And then we're also going to, before I add in the spice mix, I'll also add in my maple syrup, which is another ingredient that we absolutely always want to make sure that we are measuring. Now this is going to help us stick, which is nice. And I know it seems like a lot. There are 2 tablespoons in it, but I promise it's completely okay. And then now I can feel that it's getting very sticky as I'm mixing. Is it a good angle? I went with glass for all my things because I wasn't sure of the angle. Okay. So then I know that it says just to pour it over, but I'm going to add it in batches because I want to make sure it gets completely combined. Now, as this is cooking, it's going to candy, and now all this sugar is going to harden on there, which is very tasty. And it does get finished with some time as well, which I'll do after, while Chef Katie's doing her cookies and caramel. And then now that I have all this, now it won't completely mix in. You'll see the brown sugar is going to coat on the top. It's completely fine. The brown sugar will melt as it heats. And then once I have everything tossed and the sugar mixed in, I'm going to spread the mixture back over my pan. And then I want to make sure this is one even layer. I don't want to have any clumps. Now, if you clump it, it just means that more of it's going to stay clumped and in bigger, what are those? Aren't they called clumps? I don't know. But if you lay it out flat, you'll get them more separate pieces as a traditional trail mix. And then I'm going to stick that back in the oven for the 10 minutes. And Chef Katie's going to go back towards her cookies and her caramel.
Cool. So we'll follow up with that when it's all finished and done. It already looks really good. I'm excited to see the finished product.
Yeah. Excellent. I know that I'm excited about it too. I think the best thing about learning how to make these types of like snack things is that obviously at the grocery store, we see a lot of these prepackaged, popcorn and Chex Mix and snack mixes. And if you look at the label, of ingredients. Let's just start with the ingredients. I assure you there's going to be something that you can't pronounce and you probably can't define. That is often there to keep things crispy, crunchy. There's also a ton of salt. There's often food coloring. So I think when you really take control of your salty, crunchy, sweetie snacks, there's a lot less like guilt that comes with it, but you also don't feel as like yucky after you eat them because it's like, 6 legit ingredients.
Yeah, and I really like that party mix. It was not difficult to do. It was quick and easy, and I guarantee you it's going to taste so much fresher and more vibrant than what you would get out of like that pre-mixed Chex Mix bag. No offense to Chex Mix. I don't want to be like in particular.
Yeah. Well, and I make homemade Chex Mix. My dad always made it, and it's just something that I have like continued doing. And when you taste homemade Chex Mix and then you taste what they're selling in the grocery store, they don't taste anything alike. It is not the same flavor. It's kind of crazy. And so it really does just go to show that like when you make it yourself, it tastes better. I also find that when you put as much work into making things like the Chex Mix and this snack mix, you just don't eat as much. You kind of savor it and appreciate what you've made to that you're not eating, like right out of the bag kind of thing. So our onion is still, I'm going to say it's only like halfway there. I've got it at a pretty heavy boil, like, to where it's audible, it's bubbling and reducing, but I still don't really have much color, other than what probably came from the brown sugar. So definitely looking for more color there. My cookies are out of the oven. And I do just want to show you, it's like a little golden brown on the bottom. On the front side, it's still fairly pale. For shortbread cookies like this, you really don't want that color, that like caramelization of the butter and the sugar. You are looking for a pale cookie, but just a little ring of golden brown. And I do, let's see, I'm gonna say it was definitely like 14 minutes in my oven, which we said 13 to 15. So I'm gonna say that's like a good bake time, and I only turned them the one time. And then you do want to make sure they cool completely. I must admit, I just ate a warm cookie, and it was kind of disappointing because it doesn't have that snap, right? And that's what you're really looking for with the shortbread, is like that crispy, sandy kind of material or consistency. So don't make the mistake I did and eat it too soon. All right, so I have, oh good, you can see I have this good, it's like a smaller than the bacon pot that I'm doing, but like a very heavy bottom, heavy duty pot that I'm gonna do the caramel sauce in. And I do wanna point out, so our caramel sauce, it does say salty caramel sauce. When it comes to the salt, we say to taste. And then I realized also that I forgot to tell you when you should add the salt. So I just want to put it out there right now that you add the salt at the very, very end. And this is because when it comes to that to taste, maybe you're very sensitive to salt, and a little bit of salt will make this sweet, salty sauce for you, or maybe you're going for something that's a little more aggressively salty and sweet. That I just wanted to leave it up to you. We also put kosher salt as the recommended salt, but you definitely could use that fine sea salt that I used, or you could use like a crystally, like finishing sea salt as well, like that. The larger flakes of sea salt is the word I'm looking for. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my 3 cups of sugar into here, and then I'm just gonna pour my water right on top, and I'm not going to stir. And the reason I'm not going to stir is because that is when you get those little crystally pieces on the side of your pot that ultimately are going to infiltrate your caramel sauce and make it crystallized, right? You'll have something a little crunchy in there that is not what you're looking for. I do have my burner just on completely high heat right now. And you'll be able to see in this fancy camera how it is going to, the water and the sugar are just going to kind of combine with very little effort. I do have my towel here next to my cutting board. I have my container of heavy cream, which I'm going to go ahead and open right now so that I have that ready. And I have my whisk here because it goes from a nice amber color to a very dark burnt caramel very quickly. And so this is definitely one of those recipes that you want to not be doing anything else. You just have to stand here and watch this pot of sugar come to a boil. You really have to have your mise en place for this one. You want to have your whisk, you want to have your towel because you want to take it off. As soon as it gets to the color that I want it, I'm going to take it off of my stovetop because the heat on the metal grate is going to continue adding heat to my caramel sauce. So I have the towel on my cutting board here so that I can move it when it's ready. I also have a pot holder so that I can do that safely. And then when we add the heavy cream, it is going to kind of boil up in this kind of violent way. But again, with some steady whisking, you should be pretty safe. You can see where it's already starting to boil. So I'm just gonna give it like, just a little jiggle there to make sure that there's no like pockets of sugar. But at this point, my sugar is liquefying. You can, if you're brave enough, you can make caramel sauce with just sugar in a skillet. It turns to liquid itself and then begins to caramelize. But it's a little harder to work with. And when it comes to what we're making, which is like this caramel sauce, I do think it's nice to have that water already incorporated in so that you get this nice velvety, caramel sauce.
Definitely made it both ways, and I will agree with you, Katie, that the no water way is very risky. You have to be more confident. So if you've never made caramel sauce before and you're sort of nervous, start with this way because it is a little bit more foolproof. Oh no, Caitlin said she lit her towel on fire. I hope.
Oh yeah, Caitlin.
Okay, Caitlin.
Don't get it too close to the fire.
All right. Okay, Elaine wants to know, is the ratio of sugar when making caramel in general, not just for this sauce, but like would we want to keep the ratio of sugar and water the same? So if we were making a bigger or smaller batch, we would keep that same ratio, right, Katie?
Yes, absolutely you would. It's like 1 part sugar and a half part, I don't know what that is floating in there, and then a half of water.
Oh, I can see the edges are starting to bubble around that pot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be starting. So this is one of those things, like you were saying, you have to be patient. It's like a lot of waiting. And then once it happens, quick, ready, go, boom. Like no fooling around. You got to be prepared to jump when it is at the point that it's
I want to say the same is true of our onions here because they also have very quickly moved on me. Some of it is because the burner from the caramel is kind of getting onto the side of the pot here as well. But yes, again, it's a very good point that there's a lot of patience. I also say the same thing about caramel sauce that I say about pie crust is that you have to kind of go in with a no fear attitude. It can sense your fear. And so I do try to tell people to really kind of show some like bravery and that you can, not to be intimidated. So I'm just going to give it a little stir here
So once it becomes more like liquefied and starts bubbling, that's when it's safe to go in with the whisk. You're not going to have.
Not much. I mean, it was like, I really just did one like full circle spin there.
I've done the finicky method where you have like a pastry brush, a wet pastry brush, and you're like brushing down the sides of the pan to make sure you don't have the crystals. That is just like too much, too
It's a
extra.
pain in the butt. It is, exactly.
This way is a lot easier, but you do have to be patient because I feel like we all want to just get in there and stir and be, doing something.
Yeah. Yep, it's true. So we are just waiting. I do have another round of cookies in the oven. So.
Oh, is that the ones that are coming to my house?
Yes, they are. How do you know? You have to give me your new address.
I know. That's so funny. I'm just joking. But I wouldn't mind some cookies.
Yeah, I know. You are more than welcome to some of these cookies.
I
already sent out all my cookie gifts that I send my family.
All right, family, gifts are on their way.
Yeah.
I can see it's like it is seeming like it's also starting to turn color a little bit, right? Like it's
a little bit. Yes, you're right. It's kind of getting this like the color of corn syrup, right? It's not completely clear, but it's got, a little color. At this point, also you can tell that all of the sugar has dissolved.
I'm messing it up. Hold on a second. Oh no. Oh no. Where's your I lost your stove cam.
I see it on my, like it's in the,
Okay, hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Ah, there it is. Okay. Wait, but why is it showing black?
I don't know. I mean, on my screen, I can see it. Oh, but it's like frozen.
Oh no.
Okay, here, wait.
You had a message come up. All right. See, that's what happens when we have our fancy technology of our phones hooked to a.
It says can't open Zoom.
Oh no.
Okay, wait. I'm gonna try again.
If it won't work, let's just see if we can show on your main screen. Maybe you can.
Oh. You know what it is? It's because my phone's overheating.
Oh no.
Because it's been over the
unexpected consequence of a cooking class.
No.
Elaine is asking about what happens if you don't have a heavy saucepan. Elaine, do you have I usually use my Dutch oven for this one because that is very heavy. Do you have any other thoughts, Katie?
Yeah, I really would say, okay, so if you don't have a heavy saucepan, okay, so you can still see it a little bit.
Yes, we can see it. Okay.
My phone kind of cools off enough that.
Okay.
I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. That makes sense, right?
Sure. Phones like refrigerators, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so you really do kind of need something heavy and sturdy, like.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I was going to finish my thought. So if you don't have a heavy duty pot, I do think what's going to happen is that it's going to go a lot faster. You just have a greater risk of it burning. But that doesn't mean it isn't possible.
Yeah.
You can still do it, but maybe, I don't know if you've written your holiday wish list yet, but maybe a heavy duty pan. If you live here in New Orleans, we have this amazing used cookware store called Seasoned that has cookware that is less expensive. She has a lot of cast iron skillets and stuff too. And so it might be worth looking there to see if she has a heavy duty pot that would be less expensive. We also have a La Crusade outlet store in the River Walk, which I'm assuming is still there. And so La Crusade also is like good heavy duty cookware. And the reason that it's in this outlet is because they always put new colors. So there's not actually anything wrong with the pot necessarily. It's just that it's like that season's color, and now they've changed to a different color. And so they move them to the outlet. All right, so I'm just rotating my pan a little bit. In other classes, I've definitely talked about how rotating your pan can really help even out your cooking without having to move the items in your skillet. And so the same is true for this, that because I also have the burner on for our bacon jam here and, you know, the tilt of my house and my stove, it does help sometimes to rotate it instead of stirring. Let's see if my phone is any happier. Okay. It might be in business, y'all.
Man, this caramel game, it's a real patience test. I'm the worst. I have no patience. I'll make myself go do something else when I'm inclined to want to stir things that I shouldn't stir.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll like literally force myself to turn around and do something. I don't know, like have to come up with another task. Sometimes I get a head start on the dishes or something. I know, Elaine, you're right. You have to watch the pot. It's a real challenge. Watch the pot, but not want to, you know, go with my instinct to just be doing something to it. Maybe other people, maybe this is why I don't have children. I'm not a patient person, so I know this about myself. The parents out there are like, we got this. We could watch this pot, no problem.
Oh my gosh, no. I'm like, I feel like that's like the hardest thing is like your kids pull you away for 1 second and now you just have this like scorched caramel sauce.
Yeah,
I have learned that lesson many times where I'm just like, whatever it is I'm doing, I just turn the heat off and walk away.
Elaine says that's why you're stirring the jam right now.
Yeah, exactly, right? Well, so the jam is reducing a lot now to where there's not really much liquid. And so I'm really trying to keep an eye on like the corners so that it doesn't get like a burnt part.
Yeah.
But
I know with that jam too, you can add if you get too dry and you're not at the color you want to be, you can add a little bit of water to it. It's not going to hurt it at all. Yeah. And I will say, Katie, maybe now's a good time to mention the thing about that jam and like the sweetness level and how if we want to customize it a bit, we could.
Yeah. I was gonna say, let me actually taste it and see.
Yeah.
And see what I think. So I don't know if you can tell, but the bubbles are getting a lot bigger. Also in this, like I always in the restaurant we always called them fish eyes. Oh yeah, no, that's good. I think there's a nice balance of sweet and the vinegar in here.
Yeah. But if you think it's too sweet, you could always go a little bit heavier on the vinegar. I mean, the thing is onions, right? Like the whole reason we like to caramelize them is that they have that natural sugar in them. So that it just really lends itself well to caramelization. But it does have, you know, that added sugar. So Elaine is asking if the jam can be canned, like in I guess she's meaning, you know, properly canned for long-term storage. I would say, sure, why not? But you would have to do those full steps. This is only going to keep for so long, you know, just in a regular jar in the fridge.
Yeah. But I would say at least like a month.
Oh, yes. I mean, I've made this before and kept it a long time.
Yeah.
I will say, I know, Katie, when we talked about this, I made some as a little quick retest of the recipe last week, and I put mine in little 8-ounce jars, but we discussed maybe doing 4-ounce jars if you can find them or something in a smaller container, since that way, you know, a little goes a long way with the stuff. Yeah. And maybe then too, if you split it up and give it to a couple people, it won't last them, you know, super long.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what makes this like a really great edible gift. All right, I'm back in, Heather, and I moved my
Let me find you here.
I moved the jam over so that it I think that was what was really heating up the
Okay, I'm trying something different. I don't know what's happening though, because I feel like what I'm seeing is not what I should be seeing. It's just seeing, where do you have it pointing at right now?
Well, I have it. It's like pointing above the.
I think you might have it backwards
Oh.
in the holder.
Um.
Maybe? I don't know.
I can only see you now. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's weird. Why is that happening?
Yeah, something's not right. So while I don't know, if you want to figure it out, you can. Otherwise, I feel like I can see this view just fine.
Okay, great. Well, then I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Sandra's asked about ways to use the onion jam. I know I had written it in the chat earlier, but we could use this moment to talk about it. My favorite thing to do, I'll speak because I have a lot of
your recipe. That's fine.
With this jam, my favorite thing to do with it is I love it with cheese, particularly goat cheese or like a brie. It's really good with brie. You know, it is that really nice, sweet, savory kind of thing. So I do think it kind of lends itself well with that tanginess of the cheese. I really like it like on a cheese plate or a cheese board, you know, adding it as like a little condiment with your cheese board is great, but you can also make like a little holiday appetizer if you wanted with like a little toasted baguette or some kind of little cracker, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of jam. I really do like to warm it up a little bit for serving, not necessarily to serve it hot, but I think it does work well when it's a little bit warmed up. The other thing I think are great are like sandwich spread, burger spread. It's a great condiment for any meat dish or even roasted vegetables. Potatoes would be cool. Honestly, you can do a lot with it.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing is to put it with some cheese.
Yeah. Well, and I agree that I bet even like room temperature or like just get the chill off of it, because otherwise you're gonna the fat from the bacon is going to feel like you're not in your mouth. It's not going to feel as nice, right?
Sandra wants to know if it will go well with cream cheese as a dip.
Sure.
Sure, why not?
I mean, that's like pepper deli cream cheese magic, you know?
Yeah, it'll just be it'll be more sweet, no, not spicy.
Yeah.
Same concept though. All right, so we're really getting bubbles, but we're still just waiting for that color to develop.
That color, yep. It's coming, it's coming.
All right. I was going to say maybe we should go over to Amber real quick, but I'm worried that we'll do that and then it'll be ready and we'll miss it. So does anybody else have any questions? This would be a great time for some questions. Actually, you know what we could do? I could tell you a little bit about our classes that we're doing in January. How about that? We have 2 classes scheduled for January. The first one is going to be called Satisfying Salads. Chef Katie's going to be leading that one, and we're going to be showing you how you can make some not boring, not sad, really, great salads filled with lots of goodies, lots of things that are going to keep you full and feeling satisfied after you eat them. Great homemade, simple dressings. It's going to be awesome. We're definitely getting back to a little bit more of our healthier content for the new year, because we assume that everybody's going to be thinking, all right, let's get back to our healthier eating. Holidays are over. And then the one we're doing after that is going to be meal prep kind of theme. So we're going to show you some, and I'm leading that one actually. We're going to be showing you how you can really do some stuff on the weekends, a little bit of batch cooking, a little bit of like what we can do to set ourselves up for success for the week. Honestly, it's the way I cook often, because I end up being really busy during the week and I just find myself not wanting to cook during the week too much. So that's the idea for that one. We've got some other fun ones planned for February, but I'll wait to tell you about those later. We'll have those up soon too for people to sign up for. The 2 in January are actually already posted online. So, you can definitely sign up for them. Sorry, Elaine. Honestly, I don't want to say too much because we got to work out a few last minute details for those February classes. But I know there were some comments, which I'll just share with everybody in case you're not following along with the chat. And some people are saying that they really hope that we do these classes even after, we're out of this period of COVID where we have to be apart from each other. And I will say that my answer to that was, we definitely intend to keep doing them as long as people are coming to them. We really like that we're able to see some of our local familiar faces, but as well as now we've got some new familiar faces from a little farther away, which is nice to be able to connect with people all over the place. So hopefully you all will keep coming and keep learning some things and just having fun too. I mean, I will also just say, I'll throw it out there because I just love to keep talking and talking, and that caramel is just not turning brown yet. So I'm going to keep going. But if if anybody has any thoughts, if you've come to a couple of our classes and you have any thoughts or suggestions, if there's any topics that maybe you're interested in, feel free to shoot me an email. You all have my email address. It's all over everything you ever get from us. So please feel free to let us know any feedback you have. We are going to be investing in some lighting so that we can get ourselves looking a little bit more professional, hopefully. But we are doing this very much from our homes. We're not online cooking class professionals, but we're getting there. We've been doing them now for a while, so we're definitely getting better and better at it. But like everything, we have our tech challenges from time to time, and we do our best.
All right, I'm going to move it over to my bigger burner because I also am losing patience with this sauce. And so I'm just going to I'll just move it over or show it to you when I feel like there's some color that's happening.
Oh, thank you everyone for saying we're doing a great job. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yay.
I do want to show one little tip that I did here, which is that I just put a glass jar with a little bit of water in it and a spoon. And so this is going to help me when it's time to do that salt to taste, is that I can stir in some salt. I can put a spoonful in this water. It's going to cool the caramel down enough that I can taste it safely. All right, so hopefully now you can see that we're really actually starting to get some of that like amber color on the edges.
Amber's looking over. She's like, oh, is it my cue?
I can also smell it. I've got my towel set up here. Now, I like a dark caramel sauce. I like to really push it so that it has that real depth of flavor. And I do think in some ways it takes some practice because again, it can sense your fear and it's going to keep telling you, pull it, because it's going to be too dark and you have to tell it. But also like really let your nose teach you a little bit as well. Because that smell of the sugar is also going to be a good tell of if it's ready or not. So I still haven't really stirred it. I just gave like kind of one little whisk. So you'll often see too, depending on, I talk about this a lot, I know, but the tilt of your house, there's always one corner of my pot that gets darker before the rest. And so I really kind of, I try to rotate my pan for that reason. Okay, so I like how it looks now. There's definitely a lot of like steam coming off of it, but hopefully you guys can see. And then sometimes too, I like to actually stir it and let it cool down a little bit. It's all actually keep cooking some. I'm trying to see. I'm like, can you see the color? Like, can you tell when I stir? Because I know there's like the foam.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell when you're stirring it that it's darker underneath.
Yeah.
Basically.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to add my cream in like a steady, and I'm stirring.
This is the part for bravery in particular, because you see how big and bubbly it gets?
But when you incorporate that air and a little bit more of the cream, it's actually, it's going to cool it down.
I think it's a good point that you want to have a long whisk for this. No little shorty baby with your hand too close. You got to have one that keeps your hand far enough away because it does have a lot of steam. Wouldn't you say, Katie?
Yes, no, definitely. I think that because I know I tried to put in this recipe of like, you know, sugar burns are extremely, extremely painful because they like attach to your skin. And it will leave like a really nasty blister.
Yeah, steam burns are by far the worst.
Yeah. Hey. So I am very happy with this. I have to be honest now that I have successfully made this recipe is that it has been probably 15 years since I made caramel sauce. If anybody here remembers Dante's Kitchen, this was the recipe that we used there. All right, well, hopefully you can see now too, just like what the color looks like. And then this trick that I was saying with the spoon into the water is gonna just help cool it off so that you can see, you know, what its consistency will be like when it's cool. Had I put less heavy cream in it, I could have made a caramel sauce that was like a little stiffer. And I am going to start with about half of a teaspoon of salt. And we'll see if we're ready for the flavor. I do feel like, should we move on? Are we happy with the lesson we learned?
Yes.
About caramel?
We're good to go. The only thing we would like to know is Sandra is wondering how long this caramel sauce is going to last.
Oh, well, I would say in your refrigerator, 10 days to 2 weeks. But because it has that heavy cream in there, like I would recommend, you know, trying to find a use for it and use it up. This is also, I think, a great gift, like the bacon jam, to give a very small jar of, right? Like the equivalent of a quarter of a cup. Because that way people can, you know, they don't feel like this kind of pressure to eat all of it, because they can just be like, oh, we'll do ice cream sundaes one night and use up all this caramel. I also, for things like this, really love including the recipe when I give people gifts that I think they're going to be like, oh, I want to make that again because you just gave me a quarter of a cup and I want to eat more and more of it.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely done that, especially it's really good with those spice mix type things too, because people are like, oh, that was good. I want to make more. All right, I'm passing it over to Amber so we can move this along. Okay. All right, Chef Amber, she's ready, I think. She's in her microwave. She's getting ready. Oh, I know what she's doing. All right. I'm going to put the recipe for the chocolate magic shell in the chat.
Sure is. Okay, so guys, this is one of my favorite recipes in the whole world. We make it in kids class. Vaguely obsessed. Okay, so chocolate magic shell uses 3 ingredients. This is our coconut oil. I put it in the microwave. Now I need to move very quickly because you need it to stay hot and you can't let it cool. So I'm just adding to my coconut oil, which I did in a heat safe bowl. Turns out glass is very hot out of the microwave, as most of us know. So just make sure you have a dish towel, and that also keeps it from moving. And so I'm just going to add to this the cocoa powder. Now this is just Hershey's cocoa powder, nothing fancy about it. And I'm going to whisk it in. Now you don't want any clumps, so that's why we want to make sure that the coconut oil stays hot, that we are mixing and incorporating as quickly as possible. And again, just like spices, cocoa powder is fat soluble, so it mixes very quickly. It looks very similar to like hot chocolate. And then once we get enough, super smooth, I'm very happy with that. That's when I can add in my maple syrup that I definitely thought I was done with. My bad. And then to this, it just gets 1 tablespoon of maple syrup. Now, the maple syrup is the only sweetener in this whole thing. You can't add too much because then it won't harden, which is the trick of this recipe. However, you could potentially, if you don't like the taste of dark chocolate, which is very much what this tastes like, you can add in a little bit of confectionery sugar to your cocoa powder.
So this recipe, Amber, is inspired by that thing that comes in a bottle, but we're making it homemade. And really, I love that it's just those 3 simple ingredients.
Usually right. And so you could add a little vanilla to it if you wanted, or a little cayenne, whatever you like. I like the basic flavor because I want to make sure whatever I'm putting on it gets to keep its flavor. And so this is gonna, just like what we have in the store, and those bottles, they're in plastic. Who knows if it has BPA in it? I don't know. You put the whole bottle in the microwave, put it over the top, it hardens, very similar to when you're at the at a ice cream stand, and then it hardens over something cold. I'm going to show you it in action because it's so cool. Science, man. Now, that's the reason why we cannot substitute for a different type of oil. It has to be coconut oil because it has to still to be a solid.
Yeah. So I would say this is probably the only
healthier option that Heather would recommend.
Ooh, I think both of that good. Yes.
I went with ice cream for my serving. Chef Matt will eat the strawberries because he's healthy. And then as I'm putting the chocolate on it, it's going to harden. I'm trying to be gentle and not put too much because, you know, more is not always more. Oh, he's going to be cranky with me getting on the dish towel. Don't tell on me, guys. It'll be our secret. I'll blame the dog. And then you just give it a second. You'll notice it's very shiny and it's just going to get matte finish. And it's just going to create this hard shell over it. Now, I love this because, let's not use a coconut. When I break it, as I do a kids class, it's going to break and create that nice shell, which people really love. I'm including this in my my Sunday gift basket that I'm going to show y'all in a second.
I love this. It really truly is magic. And I will say, we don't love coconut oil in general at GCCM because it is high in saturated fat. So it's basically the same as butter. But as you noticed tonight, we're using butter too. So it's all right. You gotta do everything in moderation, like we always say. Sandra's asking about how to store this. I think you're going to talk about that right now, right?
So I bought a couple of these cute little jars. This one's full of chocolate magic shell. I filled it in and then put it in the fridge. So it's hard. And so this whole thing, I'm going to write directions to go in the fridge. It can stay at room temp. It does not need to be in the fridge, but I prefer all of my condiments together. And so because I know that my caramel will be in the fridge, I want to keep them together. So again, this one's also hard. So the best part about these containers, which I recommend for any container, is to put them in something that's microwave safe, just like Chef Katie mentioned, where you can just make it be one serving worth. And then this whole thing can just be a pour over. So I'm going to keep mine in the fridge, but they don't necessarily need to be. Obviously, I can't
pop that jar right in the microwave, right? You just do a little quick microwave and then you're good to go. And you can kind of keep microwaving the same thing over and over again. It's fine.
So that's the other thing. These can absolutely stay on your counter if you wanted to, for the chocolate magic shell specifically, because it is shelf stable. And then you can just heat this up, pour it over, let it harden, do it again. Like there's no max on it because it is such a high fat content. And these are both going to go into my ice cream gift basket. And
are we going to get to see the ice cream gift basket at the end?
I'm building it as we go.
All right.
And then lastly, I want to show y'all our mixed our trail mix. So the best thing about this is you'll notice that there's little bits of hard almost caramel in between. That's a brown sugar that stayed as a liquid when it melted. That's my fave because then when I crunch this, it's just going to incorporate in. And it's almost like little shards of sugar in there too. And so I'm going to leave all of that, break it up a little. And then I have, of course, a conveniently matching container, just in a larger form. Guys,
Fancy, Amber, with your matching containers. So cute.
I don't know if everybody in New Orleans knows about Mary's Ace, but Chef Katie told me about it. That place is a wonderland. Very
It's
phenomenal.
Check it out.
Yeah, on Rampart.
I love that you're doing that in a jar. Again, I know we said this the last class too, but like, even though you could put this in a bag and that would be totally fine too, I think jars are so nice because people can find another use for them. And then, you know, you're not throwing something out. I feel like, we throw so much stuff out, especially at the holidays. Cars.
It does. It also really helps, like if you're shipping it or people are transporting it, that you don't end up with a lot of broken up cereal or
True.
it protects it a little bit.
Well, my main thing is I have a snack drawer at work and I plan to put all these in there. And when I have it in there, I want to make sure that I can easily see my containers of deliciousness and not have to worry about them all getting crunched at the bottom like the old bag of Ritz crackers. Then I'll just cover it up and I'll show you, because why not? I'll show you my basket. Okay. So as I mentioned, gluten-free, so you can pick non-gluten-free cones. But I want to make sure that I got all the fixins for my ice cream sundae. So I got my 2 different toppings of my cones. Got some rainbow sprinkles, which are Chef Matt's favorite. I'm gonna leave in my popcorn with the bag because, you know, snacky. I'm gonna just go ahead and just make this a whole snack box right now because I got my nuts. And then I have these cute little cookies that we made last night because I wasn't able to make them Earl Grey cookies today. And so I can have all these together and then wrap this up and gift it. Just
Are you gonna put my name on
put dish rags in the bottom because I really this one's going right to work for you 100%.
Yeah, because you're going gluten-free in 2021, Heather.
Hey, there's no shame. Sometimes gluten-free stuff is good. There's nothing wrong
I
with
prefer the gluten-free. Well, of course.
Well, I will say,
Listen, nobody eats my snack.
yes, some gluten-free stuff is not so good, but homemade gluten-free stuff is usually pretty tasty. Amber, I love that basket though. Seriously, so cute. Amazing. All right, let's turn it back over to Chef Katie so we can wrap this baby up.
Okay. I was like fascinated by Amber's gift packaging that I kind of let my onions burn. What? Not completely. All is not lost. And if anything, I will really kind of stir in. It was like close, right? But not all is not forgotten for ruin. So, and this is the other thing too, again, for me is like, I like things this like darker caramelized color here. So
yeah,
that is done. And then I am going to show you guys in the jar that Amber was nice enough to pick up for me from Harry's Ace are a way that you can give our pancakes, which I did this a couple of years ago as Christmas gifts for my family. And because I shipped them, I did just do it in a Ziploc bag. So just to reiterate that you do not have to spend the extra money on the jars if you have Ziploc bags or Tupperware containers. I reuse those too. So, but right now in here, I just have my whole wheat flour. I have my baking soda and baking powder that I'm going to go ahead and just add right on top of that. I also have my cinnamon and brown sugar. I like to make it so that you can see those things in there personally. And then the way our recipe reads is that the oatmeal, you actually want to soak in buttermilk. So we want to keep that separate from all of that. So what I have here is just a piece of saran wrap that I'm going to, kind of like how Amber did with the popcorn. I'm just going to put this saran wrap on the top here so that it will hold. And I'm just making sure that it's like perfectly around my jar so that it doesn't just fall into my flour. And I'm just going to put my oats right in to it. And then the lid goes right on top. And certainly, you can trim up that little bit of saran wrap on the side so that you can't see it as much. And maybe a smaller jar would be better for this situation, but I think it also looks kind of cool, like a terrarium.
A terrarium of oat pancake mixture. So I did write this in the chat, but we just gave them the recipe for our oat pancakes with fruit sauce. And, the idea here was like, oh, you could make that dry mix to gift to somebody, give it with the recipe so they know how to make it. And that's I will say it might not sound that delicious, but it is one of our big popular favorites from our community classes that we do.
And my mom just commented that the pancakes are delicious. And I have to say that the reason that I did this was because I have told people our pancakes are great. You should try our pancakes. Yeah. But my mom didn't quite get on board because she doesn't own whole wheat flour or, it just, when you don't have all the ingredients or you haven't had it yet, you kind of drag your heels. And so I really was trying to give my family the opportunity to have no excuse for not trying the pancakes. And look, so my also commented as Neil Bingham that because she also receives my my packages, and so it worked. I got them to make pancakes from scratch using whole wheat flour and oatmeal, and they loved them, and they remake them. And my mother now has whole wheat flour in her pantry.
Woo woo! Awesome. I do want to just share a comment in case everyone didn't see it, but Corey mentioned that applesauce cups work great for fitting inside the top of the jar. So if your kids eat the little applesauce cups, clean them out and use that. That's a great idea. I know we use those ones at work that are a little portion cup, but not everybody has that. So an applesauce cup is a great idea too.
Yeah.
Cool. Amber taught Corey all that little trick. Oh, isn't that cute? Okay, well, I will just say I'm gonna show both of your little faces as we wrap up and say good night to everybody. Again, thank you all for coming to our class. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Katie. I think we got to see some really fun things today that were, not maybe our normal, but it's not a normal time. So we're having a nice little holiday fun time. And I am glad that we were able to show people some fun gifts that they can give or keep. I'm going to put us back to our gallery view so we can see everybody's faces. For those that cooked along, I hope that it was successful. I hope that you had a great time. Oh, thank you. Greetings from Oakland, California. Yay. We're getting all over the country with these classes. This is awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for your continued support. If you're new to us, thank you for your support tonight. We hope to see more of you in 2021. We hope that you've been enjoying these classes. We have really been enjoying doing them. I know Chef Katie, Chef Amber, and I will all agree that we really miss seeing all of our people in person and being able to be in the teaching kitchen with everybody in person. And this has been a great way to still connect with everybody this year. So we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Goodness, it's going to be a new year.
Oh, Latasha, I didn't realize you were in Virginia. You're with us all the time. Thank you so much for coming. All the way from Virginia. And we got, Corey, you're up in the snow up there in Rhode Island. I know. Thank y'all. Have a happy holidays. Happy Merry Christmas. Happy everything. Happy New Year. We'll see ya in 2021.
Yeah. Bye.